Congratulations on getting your Wonder Sock Loom. Now let's get started. You've probably gotten a sharp tool like this one with a nice pointy tip that will help you in pulling the stitches off the pegs. And let's use some sock weight yarn that is really thin. It's about fingering weight. Number 1 or number 2 will work great. Now let's decide what size of sock you're gonna make and adjust your knitting loom to have that number of pegs. To adjust your knitting loom, simply, if you have your knitting tool would have come with a rubber band, simply slide the slider up and down until you reach the number of pegs that you need for your sock. Let's say the sock you want to make is 8.5 inches around. You will use about 64 pegs. So go ahead and adjust it to that. I'm just going to adjust mine small so that I can demonstrate how to use the loom. So once you line up your pegs, your slider with the side pegs, and then put your rubber band over it to hold that slider in place. First, make a slip knot with your working yarn. Place the slip knot wherever you want your row to begin. I am going to start my row right here on one of the sides. If it helps, you may put a stitch marker, a peg marker on on your first peg so that you know where your first row begins and ends. So let's cast on. You can cast on with whatever method you feel more comfortable. You can cast on with the E-wrap. I'm going to go ahead and cast on with the E-wrap. So go around all the pegs in the E-wrap method. So around all the pegs. And now it is time to wrap the slider pegs. Simply take the working yarn inside the loom, wrap around that first peg. And now you're ready to begin knitting. Now that you cast it on, you're ready to begin your first row. Simply take your working yarn to the front of the pegs and lay it gently on top of the pegs above the wrap that is on the peg. And with your knitting tool, simply lift the bottom loop over the top. As you can see, I just lay my yarn on top and I do not tighten it, I do not anchor it, so that it moves freely when I lift over the peg. See, lifting over, and look at how the yarn moves by itself, adjusting itself to the tension, my knitting tension. Now if I were to tighten it, hold it tight, it won't move, and consequently I will have a very tight stitch on the next row, and I do not want that. So simply lay it gently on top, let the stitch simply fall in, and as it falls in, the working yarn gets pulled and it hugs the peg. And that is knitting on your Wonder Sock Loom. One more time, simply lay the yarn on top, do not tighten it, lift over, let the yarn freely move so that it adjusts to the knitting tension. Over. When you reach the slider, simply push those stitches that are on the slider down. Take the working yarn in front of the pegs on the slider and knit over. Reach that last one. And over, and you're ready to begin your next row. Simply push the stitches down on the peg so that you can start knitting again. Lay your yarn on top and continue knitting round and around until you have reached the desired length for your sock. For the leg, then do the heel, then the sole, then the toe, and you're done. Happy looming with your Wonder Sock Loom.